It's time to fire this thing up.
Welcome aboard ShipShape TV Essentials. This is your port of call for the most impactful upgrades, expert advice, and hands-on solutions from seasons past. This episode is proudly brought to you by SureHold, because anything worth doing is worth doing bright. From cleaning to protecting and perfecting, SureHold has everything you need to keep your boat shining. Don't just go boating, go showboating. Now, let's hoist anchor and set a course for another exciting episode of ShipShape TV Essentials.
If boating's your game, then you agree. ShipShape is the way to be. Out on the lake or on the sea, ShipShape means trouble-free. ShipShape means being neater. ShipShape makes boat work easier. ShipShape is the way to go. The ShipShape Boat Care Show.
It's great to have you working around the boat with us today. I'm John Greviskis. What I'm doing here is I'm measuring the back of this boat so we can install some trim tabs. You might remember a couple of weeks back, Nick and I started this boat by filling in some blisters, and then we installed this custom transom plate. Well, we're going to continue on with this project boat by installing some trim tabs, and if we have enough time, showing you how to lay in some boot stripes. Get ready. We're going to show you a couple more great ways to make your boat shipshape.
ShipShape, America's favorite boat improvement show, is being brought to you in part by Mid-Island Marina, home of the VIP Guarantee, and by Fort Myers Beach Marina, over 60 years of doing things right. Stainless Marine, fly like an eagle with performance-proven products for every boat owner.
There are a couple of good reasons to install trim tabs on your boat. Now, one would be efficiency. When you're using trim tabs, your boat can actually cut through the wave rather than your boat riding on top of the wave and pounding. Nick, what are some other reasons you can think of?
Well, John, the first thing that comes to mind for me is performance. And that's because when you tab the back of your boat down, you let it come up a little bit, then you allow your propellers to run parallel with the water that's coming off the bottom of the boat. So instead of the propeller shooting the propulsion downward, you're running even, becoming more efficient, also saving some fuel.
We can tell that you're a high-performance guy. The reason I like trim tabs is I don't have to tell my passengers to either, guys, can you move over to the starboard side of the boat, and then, okay, now can you get over to the port side of the boat? The tabs do the work for you. Yeah. Nick, what centers have you determined for us?
Well, I've chosen 30-inch centers for this boat.
How did you arrive at that number, Nick?
Well, 30 is my lucky number.
Are you kidding me? That seems a little wide.
It is a little wide. No, I am kidding. Actually, 33 is my lucky number, but I chose 30-inch centers on this boat for a couple of reasons. And if you remember, we had the single engine cut out here before we installed this plate. And I really want the engines, when they mount on, to have all the bolts run through full transom rather than just the hollow plate. So with the 30-inch centers, we're going to come 15 inches off the center line, representing the center line of each motor. Now, according to our instructions, we want to run approximately 8 inches away from that center line so the tabs don't cause any turbulence towards the propellers.
You also want to mount the trim tab as far outward on the boat as possible. Now, this is going to aid in your lateral control for the boat, but in this case, we have a ridge here in our transom, so our only choice is to mount them right about here.
Also, when you mount the tab to the transom, you want to look behind where the cylinder or the actuator is going to mount. Sometimes they're going to fall right even to where your deck is, or it's going to come in an area where you can't get back on the other side to put your fittings on, and you might have a problem. Now, fortunately, Bennett, the manufacturer who supplied us with these tabs, they have a few alternate ways you can do that. One is you might be able to put a 90-degree fitting on the back of this tube coming through, or they make a cylinder or actuator that has an external mount. So if you were in an area that you couldn't do it, you can turn this any way you'd like and run the line either drill through or through a scupper hole.
Nick, we've got a slight problem here. This actuator, which is the piston, is lining up with this transom plate. Now, what's going to hold this actuator on is stainless steel screws, and if our stainless screw touches this aluminum, we're going to snap it.
Screw that in, it's going to twist it right off.
How about if we take a drill bit, we drill a little bit wider, and then we just mount the stainless screw into the transom itself.
Great. That's what most boats would do anyway, because you don't always have the transom plate.
Absolutely. Now, how are we going to line this up on the bottom?
We're going to take a straight edge, and it's recommended to use about a 4-foot straight edge. You're going to come down off the bottom, approximately the middle of the tab, and then where the tab's going to mount, again, we want to be as close to the bottom as possible, but up a little bit. We want to be a 1/2 inch from the end of the straight edge to underneath the tab. So we can either measure it or stick something in there. I like to stick a little chunk of wood or something that's a 1/2 inch thick, maybe tape it to the straight edge. Then we'll line these up and get some holes drilled.
That'll take some of the drag away from it, right?
Absolutely, because then when the tabs are all the way up, there's nothing, no water touching them. You need to mount this tab or plate to the back of the boat. We already know the location. I'm going to use the backing plate as a template and hold it up to the bottom of the boat, again as far outside as possible and as close to the bottom of the boat without going below it. I'm going to take my drill and I'm going to pilot hole some screw holes and mount it. That's got that. Now we're going to back this plate up with some 5200. We're going to make sure we put some sealant on our screws as well. We'll install this plate. But what we're going to need to do is, while we're finishing this up, is take a break. I'm going to mount the other plate and get ready to put the actuators on, and we'll do that when we come back.
ShipShape TV will be right back.
The ultimate 3-in-1 boat hook from Surehold. Engineered to serve multiple purposes, this versatile 3-in-1 tool can be used as a traditional boat hook for docking and securing your vessel, for carrying a dock line to a pillar or cleat, for safely pushing off a dock space, and more. Compatible with all Surehold handles using the SureLock system, the Surehold boat hook is an essential tool for any successful boating adventure. Surehold. Clean and simple.
We now return to ShipShape TV.
Welcome back to the show. We left off before the break with Nick installing our trim tabs, and Nick, I really love that tip that you were showing guys about using the backing plate as a template to mark out your holes.
They just went right in, no problem.
Now, how are we going to attach our actuator?
Well, first we want to determine the height again, and I went ahead and put a 1/2 inch spacer on the end of the straight edge so we can get that tab up a little bit. I'm going to hold this along the bottom, and you can just let the tab rest right on that edge and mark
our actuator out. And what I like about Bennett's system is they give you a little template here to drill out your holes.
Yeah, and if you notice, the template's marked 3/16, and we talked about going into this aluminum plate, we want to be careful. So I think I'm going to go up to a 1/4 inch and pop through the metal first and then a smaller hole to let the stainless steel screws tap in. Looks like we might have another problem, John. The thickness, since we're going through plate on the inside and the outside, it's going to require a little longer tube into the actuator. Fortunately, they're available, and we won't have to go with the external mount, so we're in pretty good shape.
Well, while you finish that up, I want to show you guys some different trim tabs that are on the market. This is a 15,000-pound Scarab, and it's a multiple engine scenario. We're using a Keycafer 280 tab on this. This is like the King Blabo tab of tabs. This is for high performance boats, and whenever your boat is going over 70 miles an hour or more, this is the type of tab you want pushing down on the water. It'll put out 3,600 pounds per square inch of hydraulic pressure, and they're driven by separate pumps. Let me show you something else that's kind of in between. Now, if you have a boat that's going to be running anywhere between 40 and 60 miles an hour, you may want to consider a sport tab. And basically what a sport tab is it's a thicker gauge metal than the stock tabs like Nick's installing back there. It's a little longer as well. It's going to give you a little bit more surface and down push. And basically, when we're putting these things on, there's a couple of things that you might want to remember. You don't want to mount your trim tabs in between chines. A lot of people think that this is the area in which to mount the trim tab. You want to use this entire edge. Don't worry about that chine. The trim tab is going to push down into the water. Now also, we've got a bracketed scenario here. That's why we're going to go with the sport tab on this boat. You might want to consider that as well. And if you're going to keep the boat in the water, you want to use a zinc. The zinc will go on the top side and a screw will hold it in place. If you put this on the bottom side, you're going to lose your running surface. This is really going to give us a nice ride in the water. And speaking of nice rides, let's have a look at this new boat.
My assignment this week was to critique the Trophy 2503 by Bayliner. The company boasts performance at a very reasonable price. Let's fire it up for ourselves and check it out. I got the boat up on plane in 4.2 seconds, utilizing the optional 225 electronic fuel-injected Mercury outboard. With the stock 175 horsepower Mercury, she'll plane in only 6.2 seconds. Equipped with the stock engine, this boat will cruise at a comfortable 28 miles per hour, burning only 12 gallons per hour. With the 150-gallon fuel tank, you're looking at least 300 miles between fill-ups. This particular boat cruises at 35.3 miles per hour and has a top speed of 48.5.
I love my new boat. I take it quite frequently out fishing in the Gulf Stream along here with my two sons. And due to the high freeboard design here, it keeps the kids from falling overboard. Plus, it keeps us dry on the trips out and the trips back in during rough weather.
The boat is built in 6 of the 13 different manufacturing facilities Bayliner owns across the country, easing the challenge of distribution. It's very impressive to see this boat come together. The company has many technological advancements, like their advanced computer-aided design system. They start with designs that work. Lifetime stainless steel fasteners and hardware like Perco cleats and Teleflex steering systems make this boat one of the best values I've ever seen. As you can see, this boat was built with the fishermen in mind, but I'm glad they didn't forget about us moms. This large center console houses a convenient porta-potty / changing room with easy access. Ample storage both below deck and in the center console gives plenty of room for those beach-going accessories. A big recirculating 152-quart live well that should keep your bait active for hours. Tremendous rod storage. 2 large 140-quart insulated fish wells both below deck. A molded-in engine bracket which not only frees up space in the cockpit, but also acts as a great dive platform. And over 140 square feet of unobstructed deck space. Seating is more than adequate, with room for 8 adults. These transom seats are a big plus for long trips and can easily lift out of the way when fishing. The batteries and battery switch access was adequate, but I did notice that a little more room in between the rocket launcher and the helm would be helpful. I'm sure with the optional tilt helm, the room would no longer be an issue. I was quite impressed with the performance, the dry ride, and the way in which the vessel cut through the water. A lot of boat for the buck.
I really love my new Trophy. It's one of the smoothest, most reliable boats I've ever owned. I worked very hard for my money. I believe my money was very, very well spent purchasing this Trophy.
The Trophy 2503 has a deep forefront that softens the ride. Its aggressive flare forward shoulders aside swells and spray. Trophy's compound shear line yields plenty of freeboard at the bow. Together with the 21-degree dead rise at the transom, it yields a dry ride. This boat is kid-friendly and is one of the smoothest center consoles I've ridden in for the price. All in all, I give it a big thumbs up. Reporting for ShipShape TV, I'm Elizabeth Saunders. Back to you, John.
That was a beautiful boat, Nick.
Sure was, John. Now, I really don't know how they keep doing it, but the manufacturers keep building better boats, stronger, higher quality, and they're getting better every year.
It's unbelievable. Well, we're going to beautify this boat by adding a little bit of boot stripe. Now, Nick, why don't you go ahead and give us a heads up on how to apply this. This can be kind of tricky.
And it's a little intimidating, and don't let it intimidate you. It's not that bad. If you take the right steps, use the soapy water and such, you can get this job done without too many mistakes, and hopefully we can do the same. I like to use a T-square, and I use this in order to get a straight line all the way down the boat. Now, if you notice, I took and taped the end off so when I run it down the boat, I don't scratch it. I'm going to let this edge run along the bottom of the boat, and then I'm going to mark a line, and we're going to use that as a baseline for everything else we're going to do. So let's get that marked.
Now you got to take this all the way up the boat?
Correct.
Now we're going to take some 1/2-inch masking tape and we're going to put it to the top of our pencil line and follow it all the way up. Nick, can you give me a hand with this?
Now this tape is going to be the baseline for everything else we're going to do here. And we're going to run a 1-inch underneath this and then a 1/2-inch on top. And we're going to slide the 1-inch right to the bottom of this stripe. We're going to slide the 1/2-inch right to the top of this tape. So we're going to make sure this is pretty straight. This is going to be our constant.
The next thing we need to do is spray the entire area down with some soapy water. This is going to allow our boot stripe to move around.
Now you want to work in about a 4 to 5 foot section at a time. That way you're not going to get too far ahead of yourself. We're going to start by wrapping a piece of it around the transom corner, and we'll trim that back later. Typically you'd want to stop your boot stripe, oh, maybe a 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch from a hard corner. Now once we get this on, we'll take our 1/2-inch stripe and we'll set it on top of this. You can see it's real easy. Basically we're just taking the tape and we're working it right up to the other tape. It slides right up there. And we'll give this some time to dry before we'll peel the masking tape all the way off.
Then we're going to repeat the process, but this time we're going to bring our smaller boot stripe down to our masking tape line. And again, we'll wrap it around the corner. We'll pull our masking tape and our boot stripe will be complete.
This one's a little easier because it's going to lay right on top. Gravity's going to work with you.
This should give us a nice finished look. And right now, we need to go to commercial break. Stay with us.
Here's what's coming up next on ShipShape TV. And now back to the project.
The SureHold One Bucket System is your storage and detailing solution, featuring an ergonomic corrosion-free rope handle, a bucket caddy to organize your supplies and lift them out with ease, a bucket grate to elevate your wash tools out of dirty water with integrated soap measuring cups, a bucket base that won't let your bucket scratch, tip, or slip, and a bucket lid that keeps tools secure and doubles as a comfortable seat. The SureHold One Bucket System, the world's best rope handle 5-gallon bucket. SureHold, clean and simple.
Our boot striping really turned out nice.
Yeah, it was a good job, John. Really beautifies the boat.
Nick, why don't you show them the RPU?
Well, this is the RPU unit, or the pump. And what we have is a solenoid-controlled electric pump that's going to allow hydraulic oil or pressure to flow from port to starboard side onto the actuators or pistons. Now I'm going to mount this inside this box. If you can, try to get it, out of the bilge area or in an area that's going to be confined and keep it out of the water. They're pretty durable, but again, you don't want it exactly underwater. Also, you can take this pump and mount it just about in any location. Longer tube is available, and if you've got a center console boat and you want to mount the pump up in the console, you can get longer tube and run it 20-30 feet away from the pump, no problem. Once we get this pump installed back on this transom, we're going to run our harness And it's a pretty simple harness. It's going to plug right into the pump, and then we're going to run it up to the dashboard and hook our switches up. Now the pump also has a ground that we need to put to a battery. Very simple system. Again, 2 hoses, a harness, and a ground, and we're trimming. I got the pump mounted over there in that box, and I hooked up the lines that run from the actuators to the pump. And I pulled this wire over from the port side here to the starboard side, and I'm going to run it right up to the dash. Now keep in mind, whenever you're running any wires in your boat, especially a harness like this, you want to get support about every 18 inches. And fortunately here there's some clamps already under the gunnel that I can just join it right on in. Got the wires pulled up to the dash, and the next decision we need to make is where we're going to mount our switch. Now this is the rocker switch, and there's 2 or 3 versions of switchers. There's one with a little joystick, and there's one with separate buttons. I like the rocker switch. In rough seas, I always have good control. I like to put the switches on the same side that your throttles are going to be mounted. That way, when you're in the ocean, you've always got one good hand on the wheel. You take your throttle hand, you can come off the throttles and operate your switches. So I'm going to put it on the right side. Now, since this is a project boat and we're working with some existing holes and some problems that are already here, I'm going to take this area here, in which I think it was probably an old trim switch or something used to be mounted here, and I'm just going to modify this. I'm going to take a die grinder with a bit on it and route it out to the right size, and I followed my instructions to what size it should be. That worked out pretty good because I was able to utilize a hole that was already there and not have to worry about filling it later. I'm going to take the orange wire on the back of this switch and hook it to a protected circuit so it's fused. We have to have protection again on our 12-volt wiring. Then I'm going to hook up these 4 wires from the harness. We're going to strip them back and crimp some ends on them. And fortunately, on the back of this switch, it's already stamped in. Y for yellow, B for blue, etc., etc. I'm going to finish hooking these up and then put some automatic transmission fluid into our trim pump. While I'm doing that, we're going to take another short break. Stay with us.
Stay tuned for more Ship Shape TV.
Don't neglect your non-skid fiberglass because it's too hard to wax. Waxing and protecting molded-in non-skid has never been faster and easier thanks to Sure-Hol's soft dual-action polisher brush head and pro polish. This winning combination will quickly seal and protect your textured fiberglass. Now every square inch of your boat can be detailed like a pro. Whether you are waxing non-skid, cleaning carpets, or scrubbing teak, Sure-Hold has the perfect polisher brush head for every task. 3 brushes, 1 amazing polisher. Another answer from Sure-Hold Industries' clean and simple solutions for detailing all your toys.
We now return to Ship Shape.
Well, Nick, I got to tell you, we do some great work.
Not bad, John. And I hope this gives these guys at home an opportunity to see that some of these projects aren't that hard. Give it a shot.
Now, with these trim tabs, Nick, let's give our audience an idea of dollars. What's it going to run to have a set and then maybe install them?
All right, the standard set of tabs is usually around $450, $550, in that range. And if it's something you don't want to handle yourself, you look about 3 hours labor to go to a shop and get them installed.
Great advice. Well, a little tease, we got invited to Lake X, which is Mercury's big test facility, their secret test facility, and we're going to be actually doing a little propping.
Propping, prop testing, and looking at some of the new props that are out there.
Excellent. Now, what all do we need to do this boat?
What we need to do to finish this guy up is get these top sides painted and then rewire it, hang the motors, and go do our testing.
Excellent. Well, until next week, guys, keep your boat ship shape. Nick, I really like the way the transit plate came out.
Yeah.
I think it's going to really handle the load.
Is the way to be out on the lake or on the sea. Ship shape means trouble free. Ship shape means being neither